Guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at the Aegis Dynamics Vulcan. This ship is designed to be a repair, rearm and refuel ship of a medium size, I would say. I would be surprised if it's any larger or much larger than an Argo Mole. I think that's the kind of size that we're going to be dealing with here. It's a fairly interesting ship and it does have some unique features built to be the entry level into the logistical and supply side of gameplay for Star Citizen. So it comes equipped with an external fuel tank underneath the ship, which will be purely for the refueling of other NPC ships, service beacons, anyone that's run out of fuel. And then it does have 4 drones, which is fairly interesting. I actually think that the drones are probably what's holding this ship's production back. I feel like if they started to build this, they would have to build the drones, and that would have a knock-on effect, i.e. the Carrack and the Reclaimer owners of those ships are going to want their drones too. So I think it might be a little bit of a headache, but on paper there's literally nothing that I can see really holding this ship back from being built apart from the drones. So I think it's going to be a fairly common ship in and around the verse. This for me will be an in-game purchase, or I am going to hire people to use this and come fix my ship, refuel my ship, and repair it if needs be. It does have a 3-man crew, which I think is about right for the same. Like I said, I do feel it's going to be like a mole, a little bit bigger than a mole in size. 3-man crew is adequate. So although it has the 4 drones, you can only operate 2 of those at a time. You cannot operate all 4. The drones themselves are range limited, so don't think that you're going to be able to zip around the entire verse with your drones. They're limited by range, and the interesting feature of these drones is not only can they repair, patch holes, etc. They do have like a tug feature. They have small arms, so you might be able to drag things off and on other ships, which I think is going to be really interesting, because you could possibly grab casualties and maybe ammo boxes, things like that, and deposit them on other ships. I think it's going to be a fantastic ship. I do find it intriguing, to be honest, because I really want to see where the ship's going to fit in. So as you can see here, it's clearly using its drones to patch up a Javelin, so we know it's going to be able to fix holes and stuff, and I imagine it's going to use the RCM that we have from Salvage. In terms of refueling then, so we know it has an external tank on the belly of the ship itself. Now that tank is split into 2, so you are going to be able to carry quantum fuel and hydrogen fuel, and I wouldn't expect to fill fairly large ships. I think the idea is you put enough fuel in that stricken ship so that it can make it back to wherever it needs to go to make necessary repairs, rearm and refuel. Light fighters, I would expect this ship be able to fill light fighters easily, but those medium to large ships, I think the idea is you fill it up enough so that it can get on its way. So the fuel tank itself on the belly of the ship is split in 2. So let's talk about resupplying with the Vulcan. Well, it has 12 SCU, which isn't a lot, so I think depending on what you're trying to resupply, there could be some planning involved there. If this ship is part of your fleet, and let's say you are in a fleet amongst capital ships, then you're probably going to want to bring ammunition suited to that ship if it fits. So I think the ship will have to be briefed on what it needs to do and then tailored to that particular situation. If you're just out in the verse, for example, as it is now, then you know you're not going to need to bring capital size ship ammo. But I do think you are going to have to tailor this somewhat and have some briefings on just how you intend to deploy this ship in and around the verse. Okay, so looking inside the ship then, we can already see that we have some of the Telltale Aegis Dynamics designs and flavour to the interior of the ship. Now this, of course, is old material that we're looking at, so I expect this to change when this ship goes into production, once they figure out how to get drones in and implemented and working properly. This will almost certainly change. Not by much, I don't think. I think from what I've seen, it's quite impressive and looks like they have a solid foundation to work with. So I wouldn't expect too much of a high change. So here we are in the drone area of the ship. And we have a preliminary example of how these ships, the drones are going to operate. So this sort of get jettisoned out the side of the ship. Now, as I said, they are restricted by range. They have a sort of a control zone, and if you venture out of that control zone, there's a good chance that your drone will become inoperable. Now, you can only operate 2 of these drones at a time, and for self-defense of the ship does have some defense turrets on board, which, if the crew on board are not operating the drones, they're going to have to manually operate the turrets. I think that's the idea behind that. So you can't do both at the same time. It's either drones or defense or drones. So you might have to pick your fights fairly carefully and decide, if you're in a combat situation, what's more important, operating the drones or trying to defend your ship. Especially if you're in and amongst a fleet battle, for example, you are going to have to be very careful about how you try and deploy these drones. Is it safe to do so? What's the nearest threat? There's going to be a lot of things to think about while you're trying to operate these drones. The drones themselves are Bard drones, and they are fairly interesting because although they were described as having a tug function, they do seem to have 4 arms. Maybe. It's hard to say at this point in time. I would like the ability to grab and move objects. I think the way around that, if not, is could these drones be fitted with miniature same size tractor beams? Maybe they could do it that way. That's kind of a solution that I would be, if they couldn't get the arms to work, 'cause you can clearly see they have pincers at the end of those arms. Maybe that's a way to get around it. So the drones are a big selling point. I think a lot of people are looking forward to drones. I'm certainly one of them, whether it be on board a Carrack and or Reclaimer and the other ship that I can't think of right now. So drone wise, it's a unique aspect to the ship that I do feel is going to be very fun to use. Internally then, we get a very rough, extremely rough look at how this ship might pan out. So we have towards the rear 12 SCU, we have power plant, cooling and a gravity generator at the back of the ship. Then on the belly, just below the drones, you can see we have the external fuel tank split into 2 halves, one for quantum and one for hydrogen. And then towards the front of the ship, sort of in the nape area, we have life support, a shield generator, a jump drive, which is very tiny. I was expecting, I don't know why, I just always feel like jump drives are going to be bigger than they actually are for some reason. I mean, that is tiny. And then we have avionics and a radar located up front towards the ship. Now again, this could all change. This is all very old stuff, and we haven't had any more information regarding the Vulcan, at least not recently. So that's a sit tight. It's just sort of to give you a rough idea of how they might implement the ship. So here we can see the prominent fuel tank on the underbelly of the ship. I think this is going to be very useful. I think making money from this little attribute is going to be fairly fun, and I can't imagine it's going to be expensive to fill up this ship either. But as you can see, it's not the most largest of fuel tanks. So time will tell. Maybe they will increase the size of this. I would be surprised if it stays at this sort of size. They do have to be careful because they don't want it to put the Starfarer out of business. Now obviously the Starfarer is massive in terms of fuel, so I don't think that's going to happen, but I think there's room here for this to be extended or made bigger, because that does look quite small. But this is all just guesswork at this point. It's a good function to have on board a repair, rearm and refuel ship, so we'll see what direction CIG decide to take this ship. Internally then, we definitely start to see the Aegis Dynamics design showing its face here. Very reminiscent of Vanguard interior, Redeemer interior. So we have 2 crew stations behind the pilot. Whether or not they can operate the turrets from there, I have no idea. I think they are remote turrets, so I imagine that's where they'll be sitting. Again, this goes back to choosing very carefully whether you should operate the drones or just sit tight for a minute and make sure it's safe before you do so. This ship isn't a combat ship, so in no way is it going to pack a very big punch, but it might be enough firepower there to ward off any would-be attacker. I would be very surprised if they improve and increase the size of guns on this particular ship. So the bridge itself at the moment, very unique cockpit. with the struts that seem to filter down into sort of a triangular shape at the front of the cockpit, but all the usual MFDs and the stuff that we're used to and accustomed to in CIG's work with ships is clearly apparent. As Aegis ships go, I do feel like they have some of the best built interiors of all the ships in the verse. The Redeemer is probably the most functional ship internally in the game at the moment, in my opinion, and everything works all the time. I've never had any bugs or issues with the Redeemer. It just works. So I'm hoping it's the same with the Vulcan. It is going to be interesting. I had a thought maybe this ship might have enough repair ability to bring a ship like a light fighter out of its soft death state, depending on just how much damage there is. That could be really interesting and cool if the drones are able to patch up a soft death to some extent. Whether or not that happens, I don't know. That's just pure speculation. So as you can see, we're making our way through the internal basic layout of the ship and how it might look in the future. So we have our crew quarters here. We've made our way in through the cargo at the back, where we have medium components. This ship is mostly equipped with medium components. So here we are in the living quarters. So we have a sink, a toilet, a 4-man bed bunk area of the ship, so there is room for an extra passenger, maybe a casualty, maybe someone that's just stranded and you can't fix their ship. You are going to have that ability to ferry them somewhere, of course charge them more. And then we turn around and directly behind us is the drone bay, which is a good shot. I like this animation here because we get a sense of scale on just how big the drones are. So about half the height, 3/4 up of a human. Again, I'm intrigued by these gripping arms. You can see the 3 prongs at the end of these arms. Don't look particularly sturdy. I can't help but feel having tractor beams the same size as the ones we have on the the multi-tool could be useful if they can't get the arms to work. Although I kind of want the arms to work, so there's ways around it. But the drones themselves look very cool. I cannot wait to get my hands on some drones, especially from the Carrack. As we make our way up through towards the bridge cockpit area of the ship, then you can see that classic Vanguard flavour we're getting through now. So we have the steps and the railings either side, with some components up front located just behind the cockpit area of the ship. So you have a medium jump drive on the left. Again, I just feel that's tiny. That's a medium jump drive. Look how small it is. It always throws me off. Then we have medium life support. Hopefully on its way soon, and medium shield generator. And then we go up these, I'm going to call them the Vanguard stairs, because that's just they share the components obviously, and then enter the bridge. So the Vulcan, I feel, is going to be an extremely useful ship in combat scenarios, fleet battles, and almost certainly for a new player or someone looking to get into the logistical, rearm and resupply and repair gameplay that Star Citizen will offer in the future. Has some excellent features, has enough room for you and a few friends, has that external fuel tank for refueling, which is split in 2, which is obviously very important because you don't know what fuel is going to be required, and that's going to save you making multiple trips. Does come with 3 distinctive skins. So overall, very impressive ship for its size, a lot of potential. I think I would probably trial one of these when we get to that point in the game with the NPC missions. We know we're going to be able to go and rescue maybe stricken NPCs who run out of fuel, or maybe they've hit an asteroid, etc. There's almost certainly a lot of money to be made, I would have thought, and a lot of fun to be had. So the top picture here, you can see we have some concept sketches of how the ship will look internally, and it really does look very cool. I like the look of this thing. You can see we have the turret at the back there. We have some forward facing weaponry for the pilot as well, sort of located underneath the chin of the turret. You can just see them there. So defense, not particularly effective weapons to be found on board, but overall I think it's going to be a fantastic ship, a welcome addition. Let's hope we get it soon. Let's get the drones going, and then I think there's a lot of players are going to be happy with this ship. So there we go, guys. That was my video on the Aegis Dynamics Vulcan. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you know what buttons to press, and I of course will have more Star Citizen content en route to your location soon. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Cheers.